Dr. Jeff talks love. Dr. Jeff talks life. Answers your questions, cuts through the strife. Sex and intimacy, real and true. Evidence-based, made just for you.
Welcome to Dr. Jeff Talks About Sex and Intimacy, the podcast where we explore the many dimensions of human connection, of pleasure, and healing. You are tuned into episode 45. Can love really be calculated? I want to just take a moment to sincerely thank you listener, for joining us live or if you're on the recording. I can't tell you how truly grateful I am for each and every one of our listeners. So thank you for being here. I would just like to say as well, we are out there on social media. So if you're looking for us, we're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, we're on X, we're on LinkedIn, we're on Kick, we're out there. So please follow us on whatever social media you like. If you are a Facebook person and a follower on Facebook, please follow us there, because the more followers, the more we can do on Facebook, but we appreciate you. If you are on X and having trouble submitting a question, you can do that through any of the other things like YouTube or LinkedIn or the website or Facebook or Kick. So please submit your questions there for our expert today that will be joining us. Go to the website. You know, we have so many great podcasts with amazing guest experts. So you can see all of them. There's 44 of them now on there. And as of when we're done tonight, there'll be 45. And then you can go to the calendar and see what's coming up, all the exciting episodes that we have coming up in store for you. And I hope you find what you're looking for. You can also listen to us while you're driving in the car, while you're working out. You will work out with you. You can learn about sex, intimacy, and relationships while you're doing that. So take us with you. We are on your favorite streaming service like Spotify, like iHeartRadio, like Amazon Music. We're there with you wherever you are. As we always do, I would like to remind you that all are welcome here. Everyone is welcome here. Whatever your particular sexual orientation, gender identity, or relationship style is, we are so glad you're here, and you are so welcome to learn. And I hope all of this helps you in some way. The goal of the podcast is pretty simple if you haven't been here before. It's really to just empower and enlighten you with the information you need, so that you can improve your sexual health and you can deepen your relationships, those loving relationships, so you can live your one miraculous life the very best way possible. That's all the podcast is about, to give you the information you need to make informed choices to do that. We try not to persuade you or dissuade you. We just try to give you what you need to make your own choices, because you're the best judge of what's best for you. Today, I'm so excited. We're diving into a fascinating question. Can love really be calculated? We often talk about love like it's magic, unexpected, uncontrollable, sometimes chaotic. But what if there were patterns beneath the chaos? What if our feelings, behaviors, attraction, and connection could actually be measured, modeled, and even predicted? To explore this intriguing idea, I'm joined by author and researcher Zoey Charif, whose work blends data science, psychology, and the very human experience of love. She challenges the ways we think about relationships and invites us to see intimacy through a fresh lens, one that honors both emotion and evidence. So today, we're asking big questions. Is chemistry just chemistry, or does math get involved in it? Can patterns predict whether a relationship thrives or falls apart? That's pretty cool. And what does science reveal about what our hearts have always known? Well, let's jump into that. My guest today, Zoey Charif, is a writer and a researcher who sits at the crossroads of data science, psychology, and relationships. With an academic foundation in behavioral research and a passion for making science accessible, Zoey explores how love, how attraction and connection can be understood through patterns without losing the magic that makes them meaningful. Her book, Can Love Really Be Calculated, takes readers on an evidence-based, entertaining journey. I've read it from cover to cover into how emotions influence decision making, why we choose the partners that we do, and what modern research reveals about lasting intimacy, that deep connection where you feel seen, heard, and valued. Zoe's work challenges assumptions, sparks curiosity, and offers a balanced look at the science and the soul of human connection. She speaks and writes with humor, warmth, and heart, reminding us that love may be measurable, but it's never mechanical. So, without further ado, I would like to welcome my guest. Welcome.
Thank you so much for that intro. I love that. I'll have to steal that from you at some point.
No problem. I'm so glad you're here, and I so enjoyed your book.
Thank you.
What a gift to people to learn a different way to maybe calculate and think about things. So without further ado, I'm so excited to hear from you. I'm going to hand it over to you as you introduce the topic for a few minutes, and then we'll chat some more.
Sure. Okay, let's dive into it. So we can, in fact, calculate love. We can calculate self-love. We can calculate alignment between two people. And it actually all starts with the self. So the way you calculate love is first you determine a self-score. A self-score is a numerical assessment of self-worth. So you are not likely going to fall in love with someone who is below your self-score. That's because the human brain is wired to seek a strong mate. You are literally wired to turn off. So your neurochemicals, your serotonin, your oxytocin, your dopamine will literally turn off, or let's say decrease, if you're partnered with someone that your mind has defined as weak. Now, of course, we all have different definitions, right? So this is still very much a subjective formula. But yeah, so first you determine your self-score, which is a numerical assessment of your self-worth, and then you measure your partner against all those values that you've picked out in terms of what a strong human is, okay? And you grade them. Once you grade them, then you look into trait preferences, and then you grade them on that. You average out that score, and now you have a total partner score. So you compare the self score, which is your score, to the total partner score, which is an average of values and traits. And if it's a match, then you are more likely going to sustain that relationship. But the analytics show that the perfect couple is when you view your partner as just slightly above your self-score. The magic number seems to be 4%. Okay, so let's assume I am giving myself an 80% for a self-score. I am more likely going to sustain a relationship with someone that I view as, let's say, 82% or 84%, just slightly above me. And of course, if you were to interpret that, essentially all we're saying here is you admire your partner. That's what it comes down to. You have to admire your partner, and you have to be attracted to your partner. So that's essentially what the framework analyzes. It uses calculations and determines how you view yourself, how you view your partner, and whether it's a match. Now, of course, there will come a time where, with you being coupled, especially in a long-term relationship, where or how do I put it, misalignments start to happen, right? of course, we are all human. We evolve. We evolve with experiences. Our hormones evolve, right? Our brain chemistry changes over time as well. So, what that means is, although you have, let's say, top 5 values when you first meet your partner, they may not be the same values 10 years later. So, the question becomes, how do you get back to a place of alignment? If you're not fulfilled, is that fair to you and is it fair to your partner? I mean, if the alignment is not so severe that you can still make it work, awesome. But if you're getting to a point where you're really questioning whether you want to stay or you want to go or whatever, this framework actually helps you put things into perspective. So this is not just a therapist telling you and talking it out. This is actual, let's write it out. Let's put the numbers. What is the calculation telling us? And I've seen couples get back into a place of alignment using this framework just by telling their partner, look, here's my top value, and I feel like you've been slipping in the last year, and I need you to kind of step up a bit. And then the partner thinks, oh, that's true. Right. So we're not playing a blame game here in terms of what you did, what you didn't do. We're just saying, here's what I would love from you. And can we get back into a place of alignment and effort? Right. And of course, you would have to be very open to what your partner has to say as well, because you're both working together to increase your scores in the eyes of the other. Right. With that said, I've also come across experiences where sometimes we're just beating a dead horse. If you're doing this calculation over and over again, whether it's a span of 6 months, 1 year, 7 years, whatever it may be, and it continuously shows a mismatch, then you have to decide whether it's worth it for you to stay. And there's a fear of letting go of relationships because what will family say? What would community say? Especially when we're talking about marriage, especially when we're talking about kids and a mortgage and all of that. There's a lot of heavy emotions that come with that. There's a lot of shame that comes with it as well. But if the calculations are showing over and over and over again that, this person is not a numerical match, and you've worked through it and you've communicated it, maybe this can be also your data point to make the right decision for you. So this framework can be used whether you're single and just looking to build on your own self score, if you're in a couple and you want to get back to a place of alignment, or if you're really at the end of your rope and you're thinking, should I give up or should I keep going? Right? This framework actually applies to all of that. So yeah, I'm gonna pass it back to you because I feel like I've talked a lot here, but yeah, you may have questions here.
No, it's great. And so listeners, I think the really important thing is that what I love about the book too is it challenges you to look at yourself. So when you were talking about values in particular, the
Mhm.
self-evaluation really looks at these 5 areas of family, finance, political ideology, communication manners, dependability. And so you're figuring out what is really, really important to me. What are the things I care the most about? And I think all of us need to know and understand that about ourselves, and it's an important component of our self-esteem and our self-worth and how we feel about ourselves. And then the second thing looks more, because you were talking about the two things, at traits, and
Mhm.
some of those things that you look at, we are looked at in particular, are humor, physique, kindness, leadership, sexuality, sensuality, right?
Actually, yeah, actually, I do have to clarify something.
Yes.
So, what you're reading out is an example. It's a sample
Okay.
in the book, but we all have different values and we all have different trait
Cool.
preferences. It comes down to what you think is important in your life. It comes down to what you respect in people, right? Some people don't care about political ideology. Other people are very, strong with their opinions, and they absolutely need to know that their partner matches that value, right? Or that they're more aligned than not, right? And
Mhm.
same thing with with trait preferences. Trait preferences are very unique to the individual. So all to say, the formula is there for you in terms of your plug and play, but it's up to you to plug in those values and those trait preferences, and then it's up to you to plug in those numbers. But the framework is there for you.
Cool. So that is what it's about, and it's going to be unique to you, right? Because those values are going to be the very specific things, not just those I mentioned, but the very specific things that you value the most. The traits are going to be the ones that stand out that you're looking for in a partner or that you want the most, right?
Yeah, so traits tend to be your essence, right? Those are the things that are not necessarily a choice. A value, for example, whether it's education or family or purpose, those are lifestyle decisions where you work towards it. And that's what gives you a sense of self-worth. Traits, on the other hand, you can be kind, you can be humorous, you can be intelligent, you can have white skin, brown skin, you can be whatever it may be, right? But those are the things that are very difficult to change about a person because it's your essence, right? Like whether you're introverted or extroverted, if you're an introvert, it would be very difficult to tweak that, right? I'm not saying it's impossible, but it would be difficult to change that to extroversion, right? Same thing with, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
No, you just made me kind of think about a really important point. And like in couple therapy, when we're working with patients, we always say there's only one person in the entire universe you can change, and that's you. But our goal is always to help you work on your own change. So people go into relationships thinking they'll change. They can change them. But like you said, there are traits that will not change. People show up and they are who they really are. And not that we can't change. Of course we can change, but you can't change others. You can only change yourself. So I think it's really important with our couples to understand, because like you said, sometimes people come in and they're like, fix this person, make them, fix these traits because they're not working.
Right.
Um, but that's not really how it works. The change always comes from you. You're the catalyst of the change. You put the love in, and you are the love that you want. And then it's learning to understand your partner. This is when you're actively working on a relationship. Now, before you get into a relationship, how cool to know and understand these things about these traits, your partner's traits, your traits, how they match together, your values, their values. Do they match together? Because remember, like you said, if you can't change traits, don't go in thinking, well, they'll change. Eventually they'll want children, or they'll be this person that I want them to be,
Yeah, exactly. So a trait, like if you're very much magnetized to humor, and you happen to partner with someone who does not match your humor, that's probably not something you're gonna change. You can have them watch as much stand-up comedy as you want, right? That's something that's very inherent to a human, very difficult to tweak. Whereas a value, if one of your values is dependability and reliability, you can communicate to your partner how to be the rock that you need them to be. If one of your values is overall education, you can communicate to your partner that you would like them to listen to more podcasts or read more articles, right? Of course, be gentle about this, right? You don't want to be a jerk, right? You don't want to be mean to your partner. But so those values are things that you can absolutely work on. Those trait preferences, I know I'll also say sometimes we have trait preferences that are very destructive. And I would say that's why many of us fall into a spiral of connecting with not so good people. If you're inherently attracted to the bad boy, bad girl type, right? And you just can't help it because, again, we can't change humor. It's tough to change level of intelligence or quick-wittedness, right? Or physical appearance. The same thing with that. If you like the bad boy, bad girl type, there's something within you that is just drawn to it, right? Um, so the beauty of this framework is awareness. If that's one of your trait preferences and you happen to meet someone with that trait, it doesn't mean that you're stuck here. As a human, you have free will. You can say, no, not this time. Thank you very much. All the other check boxes are there, but this is clearly going to be destructive. I've seen this pattern before and I choose to say no today, right? There are other traits that I'm sure you're attracted to. What you're wanting to do at this point, though, is to just, pinpoint that negative trait and just say no for that time and look for someone else who has those positive traits that you're looking for. And at the end of the day, it'll balance out. It'll balance out because you're looking at average of values and traits.
And so I know you talk in the book about the different zones, the red zone, the yellow zone, the green zones, and how the red zone kind of represents that toxic relationship phase characterized by the low self-esteem and everybody's kind of dissatisfied and a lot of destructive things are going on in the relationship. And then the yellow zone. Can you talk a little bit about those zones?
Sure. So the framework understands that to be with someone, there has to be matching scores. Now, what if there's a match of low scores? So for men, the average self-score is 73. For women, the average self-score is 76. Anything lower than that, I would, advise you to just kind of check yourself and how you feel about yourself and your self-worth and all of that. Okay. Now imagine you have someone with a self-score of 60%, which is way below average, that is now matching with someone else with 60%. It's a match. So it'll work, but will it be healthy? Probably not. We have two people who don't feel good about themselves, and they're likely going to project that into the relationship, whether it's projection of putting the other person down, jealousy, neediness, right? This is where anxious attachment styles tend to live, to be honest with you, in the red zone. And yeah, it just very, very unhealthy habits, unhealthy communication styles, and unhealthy relationship dynamics. Now that's the red zone. The yellow zone is a situation where you have someone with a low score with someone with a high score, and they both have this subconscious agreement that one person is better than the other. Maybe they didn't start that way, maybe it just happened over time, right? But what happens there? The person with the low score will start to feel anxious, right? Will start to, have, once again, unhealthy relationship tendencies, whereas the person with a high score will start to feel drained, and they'll start to feel like they're carrying the weight of the relationship and carrying the weight of their partner's insecurities. So essentially what's likely going to happen here is one person is going to push the other person away. The low scorer is likely going to push the higher away, either abundance or, like I said, just unhealthy relationship habits. Now, where you want to be zone, the green zone is too high-sted that both acknowledge their own value, but also their partner's value. That means you're going to see games. You're not going to see anxious attachment styles or avoidant attachment styles, not in the green zone. You see two people that feel really good with where they have worth, and they affect the partner just as much, if not more. That's exactly where you want to be. So those are the zones that we've identified based on the scores. 2 low scores, red zone. 1 low score, 1 high score, yellow zone. 2 high scores, green zone. That's where you want to be.
And so it helps you see where are you at now and and then you also give some information about why you might be there, some of the destructive ways of looking at things or the more difficult ways of looking at things, and then how to move hopefully to that all wanted green zone, which we really want people to be. But a lot of it has to do with your own self-esteem and feeling good about yourself. I mean, I think that's a really important piece of the puzzle.
It really is. And this is something that I preach. If you're in a bad relationship, or if you're single and you're looking for someone, if you don't have a high self-score, your efforts will be completely useless. You first have to work on yourself. The analytics show that the people who are currently in a relationship have a high self-score. They have an above average self-score. Okay? So all to say, To get into alignment with a partner, you need to first trust yourself in terms of how you show up as a human. And the way you trust yourself is by identifying your top values, grading yourself for each one, and working on those. When you do that, you step into a relationship as a very confident, solid, also kind person. Okay? This is and it's true. Kindness lives in confidence.
Mm,
If you want to be good to your partner, if you want to be a rock to your partner, you have to be a rock to yourself. If
mm,
you're not a rock to yourself, don't expect anyone else to be your rock. That's just the bottom line. And you're not going to attract a healthy partner if you yourself are not healthy. You need to be healthy. Your mind needs to be healthy. Your body language needs to be strong. And the way you do that is, like I said, you identify your values and you work on those. Get yourself, if you're a woman, over 76, if you're a man, over 73, get yourself to a point at the very least average, but continue to work on that. Like I'm so fortunate that I've discovered this framework that I am now in the 90s. But I was in the 60s maybe 5 years ago when I hit my rock bottom.
mm.
And then I knew what I wanted. And I started working on that over and over and over again. And I can see a very clear difference in terms of who I am then versus now. Now I can sit across from someone, feel good about myself. All those flaws that I have, I can talk about these flaws and understand that I'm still lovable and
Mm.
I still love myself. And just because they're flaws, it doesn't mean that I'm not quote unquote successful in other realms, right? But why? It's because I've identified my personal values. I feel good about myself. If someone else doesn't feel good about me, that's fine. That's fine. I'll be okay, right? And there
Mm.
will come a time where eventually you will connect with someone who does feel good about you and it's a true match. And that's what you need to strive for. But it'll only start with you. That like you have to work on that first.
It it begins and it ends with you. And I always say this is a lot of work for all of us, and this is our only work is being the best you can be and bringing that to the relationship so you can make the relationship the best that it can
Mhm.
be.
Yeah.
So I think those are some really, really important messages. And it reminds me of that universal theme that says you can't give the love to others that you're unwilling or unable to give to yourself. It's just not
It's
possible.
so true. There's this one thing that I keep saying that I really want to drive home the point. Don't expect anyone to feel lucky to have you if you don't feel lucky to have yourself.
Great
It's
point.
true.
It's a
And
great
the
point.
analytics show that to be in a relationship, in a sustained relationship, the magic number is your partner sees you as 4% above them. That means that they admire you and they feel lucky to be with you. Okay.
Mm,
How does that happen? It happens because you're confident and you feel good about yourself and you know how to show up as a rock because you're a rock to yourself. That's what it comes down to. You need to feel lucky to have yourself. So work on that.
mm. Definitely. Great message. So in integrative behavioral couple therapy, Andrew Christensen, when I worked with him and was studying and going through all this, one of the major things we look at is things that cause conflict in the relationship, and differences often cause conflict. Differences, fundamental differences in the way people are. And you talk a lot about that in the book, like with the practicals versus the emotionals, and with the critic versus the optimist, and the safety seeker versus the risk taker, the alike versus the diversified relationships, different things like that. And I think sometimes those differences, even when we would ask couples, what are some differences? They'd be like, what do you mean differences? Um, it's like, how do you interpret the world? How do you go through the world differently? What's different about you that makes you clash, right? Because
Mhm,
that's where the clashes come from. And I really like that you speak to that in the book, and then go on to talk even about some of the distortions as well.
mhm,
All those things are really important for us to understand. We want to have aligned values and traits, but we also don't necessarily want to be married to ourselves, and we are different. And those differences can make us stronger and better, but they can also tear us apart. And so I thought it was interesting, even like when you're evaluating the relationship, looking at it, the as a critic or an optimist? And then two, do you go into all of this? The work you give them from the book, from the couple therapy, looking at what can I do? Because I can only fix me. And how can I be better in this? How can I be the best me in this relationship? Versus, oh yeah, when she talks about the critic, that's you. Or when she talks about the whatever, don't use this as another tool to be destructive to your relationship. Use these tools to help you understand yourself and your partner to build your relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the critic is a very interesting personality type. So, for anyone listening, we're talking about a dichotomy. So, imagine a scale, right? So, imagine you have an introverted, extroverted scale. So, that's what I mean by a dichotomy. So, on the one side, you have the optimist, and on the other side, you have the critic. The optimist will be very happy to give high scores because they have an optimistic view of life, right? So a healthy optimist will say, "Hey, you're doing your best and I'm going to give you a top score or a high score for that." But then there's the extreme optimist that will say, "Hey, even though you've cheated on me 7 times, I'll still give you high scores for dependability and reliability." Okay, that's clearly not healthy, right? That's too extreme. Now, on the other end, though, you have the healthy critic. The healthy critic will say, "Hey, I don't believe in giving top scores because there's always room for growth. You're doing great, but there's always room for growth." So, me personally, I'm a healthy critic. With that said, I have come across extreme critics. That personality type is not easy to be with because it'll always feel like it's never good enough.
Mm,
And it'll feel like those differences or those things that you may lack all of a sudden jade the whole relationship
mm,
and it casts a shadow on the whole relationship, and all of a sudden all those things that are positive about you are no longer positive,
mm,
right?
mm.
And although they don't necessarily break up with you right away, you're always going to feel that insecurity of like, do they really, really, truly like me or respect me, right? Because again, it'll show in their body language, and if you're intuitive, you might pick that up, right? But if that doesn't happen, they tend to be commitment phobes. So these are the people that just believe there's a unicorn out there. And yeah, and you may have a very high score, but if it's not 100 or let's say 95 plus, it's simply not good enough, right? So that's a personality type that I would tell everyone to be mindful of. The extreme optimist is a personality type that I would tell you to be mindful of, right? If you are a little too lenient and you see things that are just not cool and you keep giving your partner a top score, I would just ask yourself if that's a fair assessment or if you're hurting yourself.
Mm, definitely. But, and what's fun is when you think about each thing, they have value. And that's what I try to bring to my couples. I try to help them understand. Being a safety seeker, for example, has value. Being a risk taker has value. And if you come together around that and you get to a good place around it, how great to have a little of both of those things because you've opened up to it because it's an important part of your partner and who they are. Now you have both paradigms, instead of the dichotomous one or the other, you have a bit of both, which makes you stronger and better.
I mean, I believe that. I totally believe that. I believe that that's what makes you a dynamic couple. It's like one person brings to the table what the other one doesn't, right? Yeah, it means that you as a couple, you're even stronger because you have perspective. It means that you can, be with a group of people, and if one person doesn't have any knowledge about the topic, the other one will, right? Or insight, or like I said, perspective. So I personally think that differences are very positive, right? And humans are very nuanced. To expect someone to be exactly like you, you're going to shoot yourself in the foot and just push love away. Give grace. It's okay. It's okay to give grace.
Grace is a beautiful thing, definitely. And mercy too. It's like give people what they need, not necessarily what they might deserve in the right circumstance. Certainly, we
Mhm.
don't want to support any kind of abusive relationships, but I'm talking in a loving, good relationship, giving grace and mercy can be a really powerful thing and powerful tools for sure. But at the
Absolutely.
same time, you got to take care of yourself too. And we certainly would never advocate something that is that if the relationship, and they can become very destructive for one of the partners. So it can be tricky too to navigate your way through what's the best way. But I can say for sure, after 40 years of marriage with my wife and being together for 42 years, we our minds work so differently. I'm such a big picture person, and she's such a detailed person. But sometimes, in a particular circumstance, the very thing that saves us is her attention to detail, and sometimes it's the big picture. And the beauty is we get them both because we're sort of merged at the hip at this point, I would say, because we've been together for so long. People are like, you look alike, you talk alike, but we have our own unique lives, which is really important, listeners, too. I will tell you that we do have our own unique lives. But I do think, even though it drives us crazy sometimes, the differences, because it is difficult. We'll walk out of a room and start to discuss it and be like, were you in the same room I was? Because I'm big picture and she is very much detail. But I learned so much from her about the details. Sometimes I have no patience for it because I'm not a detailed person. And sometimes she's like, what? This is important. You're missing all the details. But we're both better because of it. We're just better because of it. I am a better human. And when I look at my son and his wife too, I love that. I think he's a better human being because she's in his life, and she's a better human being because he's in her. That's good relationship marriage.
Mhm.
And it's a gift. It's a real gift to have that kind of thing. And it's worth fighting for, but it's work. It's work, 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 work. That's for sure. Okay, a couple things I was going to say. I did have this one question that came through. Do you think people are drawn to the same type over and over again? And can that pattern actually be measured or predicted? I think that's a great question that came up from one of our listeners. What do you think?
Yes, absolutely. So when you list out your top 5 trait preferences, the way to do that is actually by looking at your past and pinpointing a common theme, right? So if the common theme was cultural, you would put that. If the common theme was physical, like maybe their certain body shape, you would put that. If the common theme was intelligence, humor, kindness, emotional intelligence, sexuality, sensuality, you would put that. So absolutely. Now for those destructive traits, okay, do you think people are drawn to the same type? And can that pattern be? Yes. Yeah, absolutely. The way you measure it is by putting a score, right? So if, for example, you're dating someone new and you've got your trait preferences, because once again, you're supposed to determine that based on your past. It's not what you think you want, it's what you actually want. We need to make that difference here. Okay.
Mhm.
Sometimes we're attracted to things we wish we weren't attracted to. Okay. And if you meet someone new and you have a new partner and you see that they do in fact fit that trait preference, there you go. You just predicted, right? Or we've just predicted that you would have attraction to a person with that pattern. Sorry, with that trait.
Mm, definitely. And I think people are like, gosh, I seem to keep ending up with the same person, good or bad. I think sometimes it can go that way. And so I think that question was a good one. Let's talk
Yeah.
just a tiny bit about, it looks like we have another. Technology plays a major role in your story. Do you see the rise of AI and dating apps as enhancing or eroding genuine human intimacy?
The rise of AI and dating apps, let's talk about that. So I refer to dating apps as fast dating. Just the way you have fast food, you have fast dating. I don't believe that dating apps are necessarily positive for the mind. But I will say that I've known of many stories of people who have connected on dating apps and it's worked for them because, of course, it grows the pool, right? The flip side of this growing pool is now people think that there's a unicorn out there. Another flip
Mm,
side of this is that people are not taking dating seriously. There's a lot of opportunity out there. And we have a lot of people who are jaded that are jumping into these dating apps, not really taking it seriously. And little by little, we start normalizing very awful behaviors, like
Mm,
ghosting, for example, or breadcrumbing, or
mm,
I don't know what the other ones are, to be honest with you. But, that all came from just having more and more opportunity, more and more experiences. And little by little, we just started normalizing not caring about the other person and
mm,
not having empathy. And yeah, and if you're hurt by one person, you might want to hurt someone else because you're like, well, it's normal. It's
mm.
been done to me, right? So I think we're just perpetuating just a very bad, personally, I feel, dating culture. Um, so I do feel that dating apps have had a negative effect. But again, I will say that with that said, I've known people who have dated, gone married through the dating apps. So it definitely has helped the pool. But the question is, it's a pool of what? Is it a pool of ethical, kind, loving people, or is it a needle in a haystack type of situation?
Yeah, definitely. Dating is a daunting thing for sure. I
Yeah.
know it is really scary, listeners. I know it's frightening and it's daunting. But the thing about it is, like you said, I think good people do find good people. It can be challenging, and so what's great is the book offers a different way to figure it out rather than necessarily thinking about, and you can use it along with your other tools, maybe along with your dating app, to kind of see how things are going. And like even the AI, you got to be careful. Could the dating apps or AI be destructive or bad? Absolutely. But could you use them to enhance, like you start thinking about your values and you work with it to explore that further? Maybe. You got to figure that out for yourself, and how scary some of that stuff is for you. But I think different things work for different people. But what I
Mhm.
like is the book offers a calculable way of figuring out, first off, what might be the right mate. Secondly, how to navigate your relationship in a little bit better way. So it offers some helpful things that I think people might be able to use in their toolbox of figuring out their way through relationships.
Yeah, exactly.
I
Mhm.
thought maybe we talked just a little bit lastly about the distortions, just a little, because I thought those were really interesting too, like the savior rescuer, the sabotager, the deceiver, the overcompensator, the infatuated obsessed, the nostalgic comparison, all those things. So just can you talk just briefly about some of those distortions?
Sure. So distortions are relationship manifestations based on either low scores or high scores. So, for example, the infatuated. The infatuated is someone who has a low score who views their partner as way above them. We're talking 15, 20%, if not more above them. Okay. That's infatuation. That's not normal, nor is it healthy. Okay. So
For
that's
sure.
one of the distortions. The overcompensator is, let's say you have your list of top 5 values, and there's one value that you feel you're very shaky in. So let's say finances, for example. You feel you're very shaky in finances. Well, you're going to overcompensate with, let's say, health consciousness. And you may double down on your health and your image and your fashion and whatever, just to compensate for those other things that you lack. So that would be the overcompensator. There's nothing inherently wrong with that, but I have noticed that with some people, it can lead to superiority complex. So
Mm,
imagine, for example, exactly this example, right? Someone doesn't feel great about their finances, so they double down on their health. They're going to the gym every day. They're super lean, but now they're just so above average when it comes to health consciousness that they start looking down on people who aren't healthy like them, or who don't have the same shape as them, or who don't dedicate the same amount of focus, right? So we just went from an inferiority complex to a superiority complex is essentially it. So yeah, with the overcompensator, like I said, there's nothing inherently wrong with compensating for those things that you lack, but when it starts to look like you're now above average in some areas and you're looking down on others who are not, at your level, that's not cool either, right?
mm,
The self-sacrificer, someone who gives away their own self-worth and building on their own score to enhance their partner's score. So, for example, health consciousness, right? If health consciousness is one of my top 5 values, but my partner wants us to eat chocolate every night, right? And have dessert every night. And you know, and I don't want to say no.
Mm.
And I want to just appease my partner, right? Or maybe there's a lot of alcohol and I just don't want to say no and I want to appease
Good
my partner.
example.
That would be a self-sacrifice, or that means that I'm sacrificing my own score for health consciousness so I can work on and so I could be there for him, right?
Mm. Mhm.
So, and then if you partner with someone who's self-focused, because this is a dynamic, it's not just one person, right? There has to be a give and take here, right? The self-sacrificer is likely to partner with a self-focused. They will very happily let you be there for them and not be there for you in the
Mm.
same way. Very
Mm.
happy to do that. Yeah, another one is a deceiver. So there's the low level deceiver, someone who will just, make it seem like something, but it's not the truth, right? So like status, for example, right? Drive a nice car, but you're in debt. Okay, that's, you're kind of deceiving the truth here, right?
Mm.
There's the mid-level deceiver where, there are white lies or withholding truths. And then there's the high-level deceiver. This is where you're straight up lying about who you are. So because you want to have a high score, you want your partner to view you as a high score, but that none of this stuff is ever sustainable, ever. At some point, the truth does come out. And the best thing here that you can do is be authentic. That's
Mm.
be authentic and work on those things that you value. That's literally the best thing you can do for yourself. There's no point in appearing to be a high scorer in a certain value if you're not. Eventually the truth will come out, right? So it's best that you feel confident, and there are ways to feel confident even in a value that, object or not objectively but subjectively you may feel like you're not doing so great. Okay, like a millionaire status could think that they're way low in finances, whereas someone who, let's say grew up in the ghetto might feel that millionaire status is like, oh my god, so unreachable. So it's all relative, it's all a matter of perception, right?
Yeah. And I think too, again, it goes back to turn this on yourself. And do you have these distortions? Are you deceiving yourself? Are you sabotaging yourself? It all comes back to being the best, authentic, miraculous you. Being
Mhm.
the and that takes work for all of us. This takes work. Everybody takes work, so it does take work. So great. I think that really covered that well, and I want to come back, and if you have maybe just whatever final message you want to share, and I'll share one after I do my centering exercise. We'll come back to you in just a minute, but I'd like to do, as we always do, our closing centering exercise as we head towards the end of this episode, which has been amazing. But before we close today, I want to invite you to a grounding moment. If it's comfortable, take a slow, deep breath in and exhale gently. Let your shoulders soften. Unclench that jaw. Where are you holding tension? Loosen your belly, your pelvic floor. Where are you holding tension? Inhale deeply. Exhale fully, releasing anything that doesn't serve you. You can place your hand over your chest or over your heart. Think of someone you love, past, present, or future, someone you love in your life that you love. Not perfect love, just real and authentic love. Notice what happens in your body when you bring that love and that person to mind. Keep that deep breathing program. Breathe in, exhale fully. As you bring that person to mind, what do you feel? Warmth, tightness, longing, gratitude, maybe even grief. All of it's welcome. Breathe. Feel your chest rise and fall with each breath. Feel the heart beneath your hand. So steady, alive and responsive. Whether or not you believe, love can be measured. It is felt. It's felt in the body. It's felt in the nervous system, in connection. Take one more slow breath in. Exhale with the thought, love is both mystery and meaning. When you're ready, gently return to the space around you. You are worthy. You are more than enough. The work you put in you is the greatest thing you can invest in. Never forget that. Well, I would like to bring our guest back on. Zoey, thank you so much.
Dr. Jeff talks with Kristen Karchmer, an integrative women's health expert. They explore how reproductive acupuncture and integrative care transform fertility, intimacy, and sexual health. Kristen explains that fertility care goes far beyond conception. It can open pathways to deeper connection and improve desire. Couples can achieve more fulfilling sexual relationships through holistic care. They also discuss digital health tools and biobehavioral strategies. These tools help couples take charge of their reproductive and sexual well-being. Listeners will learn practical steps to improve their cycles and reduce stress. They'll discover how to nurture sexual vitality and strengthen their relationships. Join us on November 18th at 7 p.m. Central Time to learn more.
Vic always remembers when I forget to say what's up next week. So thank you, Vic, for telling them what's up next week. Really looking forward to that episode on acupuncture. But this week, gosh, Zoey, I can't thank you enough for writing the book and for just your great insights and knowledge, and just sharing yourself and your ideas with people to help them have deeper, better relationships.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Is there anything you would like as a final thought for our listeners to say?
Yeah, just, guys, it all comes down to self-confidence. The analytics confirmed it. So whether you're with someone and you want to get back to a place of alignment, if you're not sure if you should leave, if you're single, whatever it may be, the analytics literally show that it starts with the self-score. If you have a low self-score, you're not likely going to be fulfilled.
And so remember, listeners, the bottom line here is love yourself. You are amazing, you are miraculous, and you are worthy. Start there. Be the best you that you can be, and keep working on that as we move forward. That's my hope and prayer for you. And then I hope you find that amazing love of your life who is the best they can be too. Thank you so much for tuning in, and goodbye.
Dr. Jeff talks about sex